Welcome to my mommy's podcast.
This podcast is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. My kitchen is always stocked with their coffee mushroom blends, their matcha mix, and their straight mushroom drinks. Four Sigmatic has figured out how to get the benefits of mushrooms like chaga, lion's mane, cordyceps, and reishi into delicious instant drinks. My current favorite is their adaptogen coffee blend that has Tulsi and astragalus, but I love all of their products. They have options with or without caffeine, so if you're not a caffeine person, you can find products that you'll love. And I find that even their coffee blends that do contain caffeine have less than a normal cup of coffee, but don't let this fool you. I have found I get so much more focus and mental clarity from these mushroom blends than I do from regular coffee and without the jitters. The addition of the mushrooms, which are considered nootropics, meaning that they are good for the brain, makes these superfood blends more effective and much healthier than just regular old coffee. I love them with a dash of macadamia milk personally. I also love that many of their drink mixes are instant and packaged into individual servings, so they're perfect for travel or on the go. If you're listening to this, then you can get a special offer just for listeners of this podcast by going to wellnessmama.com/go/FOUR-SIGMATIC. That's wellnessmama.com/go/4-Sigmatic. This podcast is brought to you by Kettle and Fire. You may already know that this is my go-to bone broth because it is shelf-stable, it's easy to use, and it's delicious. But you may not know that Kettle and Fire just released brand new bone broth-based soups, which make it even more convenient to eat healthy on the go. Plus, they save a lot of time when you're trying to feed the whole family on a busy night, and they are delicious. They have miso, tomato, and butternut, and they're all really, really good. Plus, they have a 20-hour slow simmer process for their broth that extracts an insane amount of protein, 10 grams per serving, and this creates a collagen-rich broth that is great for hair and skin and nails. My favorite part is it only takes a minute to heat up any of these broths or soup on the stove, and I can keep a case in my pantry so it's there anytime I need it. Right now, you can save 10% by going to kettleandfire.com/mama, M-A-M-A. The discount is already built in, so just remember that link, kettleandfire.com/mama. Hello, and welcome to the Healthy Moms Podcast. I'm Katie from wellnessmama.com, and this episode today is going to be so fascinating. I cannot wait to share today's guest with you. Dr. Al Danenberg is a periodontist who has been treating patients with gum disease for over 44 years. He incorporates aspects of nutrition and lifestyle change as part of his cutting-edge laser protocol, which treats periodontal disease, and we're going to delve into that today. In 2015, he was appointed to the faculty of the College of Integrative Medicine, and he created the college's integrative periodontal teaching module. So he's a world-renowned expert in this topic. He has certifications in functional medicine as well as the ADAPT training from the Kresser Institute, and he's the author of Crazy Good Living. He's incredibly qualified and incredibly kind, and I can't wait to chat. Dr. Al, welcome and thanks for being here.
You are so sweet. That is a great introduction. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Oh my gosh, of course. Like I said, I love researching oral health. It's one of the first things I really started researching when I got into natural health, and I'm so fascinated by so many of the ways it truly is interconnected to the whole body, but it seems like there's so much misinformation out there. When I started researching it, I was kind of blown away how everything we think we're taught, a lot of it is really kind of the opposite of what we should do. And you are a world expert in this, so I can't wait for you to debunk some of that today. But I'd love to start at the beginning. Such a fascinating topic. And when you look at the research, historical cultures and our primal ancestors, they didn't have these problems that we had today. And I'm guessing they weren't even brushing their teeth with high-tech toothpaste. So I'd love if we could start with there. Like, why did our more primal ancestors not have gum disease and tooth decay? And why are we seeing it today?
Well, certainly I wasn't on the phone with these guys and gals to ask what the question, the obvious question is, why don't you have gum disease or tooth decay? But what we can find are skeletal remains. So there are skeletal remains that are in existence from 10 to 20,000 years ago that we could look at the jaw and see relatively healthy teeth and relatively healthy jawbone. And what is even more interesting, we see what's called calculus or tartar around the necks of the teeth next to this jawbone. Well, this is the soft plaque that you and I know very well about. And if you go to your dentist, he'll tell you got to get rid of it. Well, this soft dental plaque calcifies over a period of time, and the skeletal remains show this calcified plaque or tartar, and the scientists can do DNA testing, and they can identify all the different bugs that are or were in this event at one point living bacterial biofilm around the teeth. And it turns out that some of these bacteria individually could have been considered pathogenic and others more friendly. But in its homeostatic or balanced state around the tooth, it was not unhealthy. As a matter of fact, it created health. And there is no jawbone destruction, therefore there's no gum disease. And there are no areas of tooth decay, or very rarely do you see tooth decay. And what's the reason for that? And I have an idea. The reason basically is they ate the foods that were available where they lived, no matter if it was the equator or near the North or South Pole. And these foods were not contaminated with all the chemicals that we're dealing with today. And were not exposed, and they weren't exposed to dirty electromagnetic fields that disturb the gut microbiome. And the gut was healthy. And when the gut is healthy, the mouth is healthy. And the bacteria that is in the biofilm of dental plaque is extremely healthy, and it's supposed to be around the tooth. It's not supposed to be removed, interestingly enough. We'll get into that a little bit later if you want. So basically, these ancestors did not have to brush or floss because they didn't need to remove the healthy bacteria. You can look at, for example, animals in the wild today. If you look at animals in the wild, hardly ever will you see gum disease or tooth decay. Now take a look at our domesticated cats and dogs. They have rampant gum disease and tooth decay. Veterinarians are telling you to have them have their teeth cleaned and have all these types of procedures on their mouths. Animals don't brush their teeth or floss their teeth, yet they don't have tooth decay or gum disease in the wild. The reason is they're eating healthy foods. They're not eating grains. They're not eating sugars. They're not eating the chemicals that are put in these dog and cat foods today in the wild, for example. And their bodies take care of the bacteria in a very natural way. The reason we have tooth decay and gum disease today is because of all these bad things that are in our diets. The prevalence of gum disease today, which is amazing, is 94%. A study was published, I think, in 2010 or something like that, that showed that they extrapolated that the U.S. adult population has some form of gum infection or gum inflammation to the likes of 94% of society. That is huge. 91% of all U.S. adults have had some form of tooth decay. That is huge. That's an epidemic.
Yeah, that truly is an epidemic. And everything you're saying to me is so logical, especially about the fact, like the animal comparison, because certainly like wild tigers and bears are not brushing their teeth. And if they lost their teeth, they wouldn't be able to eat. And so yet they maintain their teeth and they don't have this tooth decay and gum disease like you mentioned. And the fact that domesticated pets do, I find that very, very telling. But I think this is a hard paradigm for people to consider because we're definitely raised with the idea of you must brush and floss like at least twice a day and keep your mouth clean and get rid of bacteria, and bacteria is bad. And I see this across the board. Like that's kind of obviously the same thing with people want their houses completely clean and sanitized and disinfected. And we're now learning that using too many antibacterial products is actually disrupting our home environment. In fact, I've been using something called probiotics to put actually back into your environment because we're meant to interact with our environment in a bacterial way since we're bacterial. But I just find this it's a really interesting comparison because it seems like along the way somewhere we got too concerned with getting rid of quote unquote germs or bacteria, and we kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. But I find that so fascinating. So I want to make sure I'm getting it correctly. So you're, as a dentist and a periodontist, you're saying we probably actually don't need to be focused just so much on the brushing and flossing and the oral health side externally, but we need to be at least as focused on the internal side as well. Am I getting it right?
I would say you're getting it right, but I don't want to come off and say don't brush or floss. For example, I totally agree with you. Our society is so educated to be antimicrobial. We wash our skin with antimicrobial soaps. We put on all kinds of products that will kill bacteria. Certainly, I take a shower every day, but I don't wash with antibacterial soap. So I want to remove the dead skin and some excess bugs that are on my body when I take a shower, but I'm not sterilizing my body. So you want to brush and floss to remove excess bacteria because we're not living in a perfect world. We're not eating a perfect diet. We're dealing with stresses that damage the gut microbiome that actually affects the mouth. So there are a variety of influences that are beyond our control to some extent. So we need to just clean our mouth, but we're not sterilizing our mouth. We should not be emphasizing removing all dental plaque. We should not certainly be emphasizing the use of antimicrobial mouthwashes on a daily basis. Go to the dentist and he or she will tell you you probably need to brush or floss better and make sure you use this whatever brand mouthwash that they're talking about that's going to kill all the bugs. Well, that's not a healthy thing to do. Removing all the dental plaque is not healthy, and removing the bacteria in the mouth is not healthy because many of the bacteria in the mouth serve a significant biological function. I'll give you an example. The bacteria on the top of the tongue towards your throat are made up of quite a number of varieties of anaerobic bacteria. These are bacteria that don't use oxygen to live. And these anaerobic bacteria actually produce a biological process that is significant for the entire body. When you eat foods like leafy green vegetables and you're eating natural nitrates, you chew them up, you swallow them, and they start to get through your stomach and into the small intestine. Quite a number of these nitrates are absorbed into the bloodstream. And in its biological state, they're actually 25% is actually absorbed into the saliva glands. The saliva glands, the salivary glands, then create saliva, and this biologically active nitrates from the food you were eating get into your mouth 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as your saliva pours out. These anaerobic bacteria on the top of your tongue actually create a chemical reaction on the nitrates in the saliva that produces another substance called nitrite. When the nitrites are produced, you swallow them. Normal swallowing, you wouldn't even think about it. The nitrites get into your system, your gut, and in a variety of areas of your body. And a large number of these nitrites are creating nitric oxide, which is critical for cardiovascular health, blood pressure control, and even gum tissue health. So when you use an antimicrobial mouthwash every day, and this study was published a few years back, it will kill the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. It'll kill these anaerobic bacteria on the top of your tongue. It'll destroy the biological nitrate, nitric oxide pathway. And you could actually develop a decrease in your natural nitric oxide by about 25%, increasing your blood pressure and giving you more risk for cardiovascular disease. Pretty interesting.
That is dramatic. And we recently met at a conference, PaleoFX, and it reminds me there are all these really high-tech biohacking type equipment that were all designed to help increase that in the body. And so you're saying just by like disrupting this balance in the mouth, you can actually decrease it that drastically. And that there's these like $20,000, $30,000 devices that are designed to fix that. But really, like, our oral health is that important to that balance in the body?
Correct. Well, the food too. Obviously, you have to eat the foods that have the natural nitrates, and the anaerobic bacteria in your tongue are critical. It's a biological function. It's there. It's not like you make it happen. It is there. Your body has this process, and there are other processes, but this process in the mouth that reduces the nitrates eventually to nitric oxide. And it's interesting how we as a medical profession want to kill all this bacteria. The one of the papers that was published in